so glad you could join me. Today, I thought we would take a look at another dinosaur book. This one has been very, very well loved by my son, and so the binding is a little bit rough, and there are a few tears here and there, but that's what happens when someone devours a book. This is another DK book, and it is the Knowledge Encyclopedia. Dinosaurs. And here we have a dinosaur egg with all kinds of creatures coming out of it that we'll see inside the book. Many you may already know, and others you may not. Let's take a look inside. This edition, published in 2018, first published in Great Britain in 2014 by Dorling Kinserly Limited, and the copyright is from 2014. It was written by John Woodward, consultant Darren Neisch, illustrators Peter Minister, Aaron Lewis, Andrew Kerr, Peter Bull, and Vlad Konstantinov. We have the contents: the dinosaurs, Triassic life, Jurassic life, Cretaceous life, and a new era. For scale and sizes, when we see the little people next to the dinosaurs, their person is approximately 6 feet, or 1.8 meters, and a hand is 18 centimeters, or 7 inches. The dinosaurs. The living world has evolved a dazzling diversity of life, but few animals can compete with the extinct dinosaurs for variety, size, and sheer magnificence. They ruled Earth for more than 150 million years during the Mesozoic era, and their descendants still live all around us today. Here we have life on Earth, from the Cambrian to the Ordovician to the Silurian to the Devonian, Carboniferous, the Permian, Triassic, Jurassic, Cretaceous, Paleogene, Neogene, and Quaternary. Dinosaur diversity. The first dinosaurs. The earliest dinosaur fossils found so far date from 235 million years ago. Only skeleton fragments survive, but these are enough to show that the first dinosaurs were small, agile animals. They would have looked like Acylosaurus, a close relative, but unlike Acylosaurus, however, they probably usually stood on two legs. So then we have two branches. The saurischians. The word saurischian means lizard-hipped. It refers to the fact that many of these dinosaurs had pelvic bones, like those of lizards, but others did not, so this is not a reliable guide. Saurischians had longer necks than ornithischians. The ornithischians had beaks supported by special jawbones. The name means bird-hipped because their pelvic bones were like those of birds, but confusingly the birds themselves are small saurischians. So we'll go back up here to the saurischians branch. We have theropods. The theropod group included nearly all the hunters, although some had broader diets. They all walked on their hind legs, and some became the birds. They ranged from small feathered animals to heavily armed giants like Tyrannosaurus. Sauropodomorphs. Diplodocus was a typical sauropod with a long neck and tail and standing on four legs. The earlier prosauropods were similar but stood on two legs. The two types are called sauropodomorphs, which means sauropod-shaped. They were all plant eaters. Into the ornithischians, we have a large branch here. Ornithopods. The ornithopods were among the most successful ornithischians. They included highly specialized forms, such as Corythosaurus, which had hundreds of plant-grinding teeth. We have up here Marginocephalians with the Pachycephalosaurs. These strange bone-headed dinosaurs are among the most mysterious ornithischians. They are famous for their massively thick skulls, which seem to have evolved to protect their brains from impact damage. The ceratopsians. The horned dinosaurs mostly stood on four legs and ranged from light weights, such as Protoceratops, to giants like the famous Triceratops. They had big, bony frills extending from the backs of their skulls. And here we have the Thyrophorans with stegosaurs, instantly recognizable by the rows of plates and spikes on their backs. These evolved early in the Jurassic and had mostly vanished by the Cretaceous. They used the long spikes on their tails to defend themselves. Then we have ankylosaurs. The low-slung ankylosaurs were armored with bony plates and spikes, which helped in defense against hunters. Some had heavy tail clubs that they could use as defensive weapons. Triassic life. The Triassic period of Earth's long history started in chaos because the world was recovering from a global catastrophe that had wiped out much of the life on Earth. Among the survivors were the animals that were to give rise to the first dinosaurs, as well as flying pterosaurs and marine reptiles. We have the Triassic world. We have a map of the Triassic world where you have Pangaea. Most of the continents were connected at this point. But if you were to lay out where our current continents are, you would see North America in this section, South America here, first, all life was recovering from the disaster that caused the mass extinction at the end of the previous era. The climate was profoundly affected by the way all the land formed one giant continent, and a lot of the plant life that we take for granted today did not exist. The climate. The average global climate was very warm compared to today's 14 degrees Celsius, or 57 degrees Fahrenheit. The regions near the center of Pangaea were so far from the oceans that they got hardly any rain and were barren deserts. Most of the plants and animals lived on Pangaea's milder, wetter fringes. The average global temperature was 17 degrees Celsius, or 62.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Plants during the Triassic were ferns, horsetails, mosses, ginkgos, which I always think of because our neighbor has a ginkgo tree. Animals, we had land invertebrates, the ever-resilient cockroach, first dinosaurs, the acanthosaurs, an early dinosaur, Diphodontosaurus, a Triassic lizard-like reptile, other land reptiles, and marine reptiles. The Nothosaurus, from 245 to 228 million years ago, lived in shallow oceans, was 1 to 3.5 meters, or 3 to 11.5 feet. Its diet was fish and squid. And here they have it as a blue and tan creature with webbed, clawed fingers. They had needle-like teeth. The sharp teeth were adapted for gripping fish but not chewing them. Nothosaurus, with its long flexible neck and needle-sharp teeth, this early marine reptile was well equipped for catching the fish that teemed in the shallow coastal seas of the Triassic. The marine reptiles of the Mesozoic era were descended from air-breathing animals that lived on land and walked on 4 strong legs. Nothosaurus, such as Nothosaurus, had the same basic body plan, but were adapted for swimming, with webbed feet and long, powerful tails, which they used to drive themselves through the water. The long, pointed teeth of Nothosaurus were ideal for seizing slippery fish, which were likely to have been its main prey, but when it was not hunting, it probably spent a lot of time on the shore. So this one actually came out of the water. So its webbed feet. Triassic sea lion. Unlike many marine reptiles that lived later in the Mesozoic, Nothosaurus had 4 strong legs. These enabled it to walk much like a sea lion. This suggests that Nothosaurus lived in the same way, hunting in the ocean, but resting on beaches and rocky shores. It probably nested on the shore too, laying eggs like a modern sea turtle. Placerius. Built like a hippopotamus and with similar long tusks, this chunky herbivore was one of the most common big animals of the late Triassic. The epoch that saw the appearance of the first dinosaurs. For several million years before the evolution of the earliest plant-eating dinosaurs, the most successful herbivores were a group of animals called the Dicynodonts. Their name, which means 2-dog tooth, refers to their 2 upper canine teeth, which were enlarged into big tusks. Placerius was one of the biggest, weighing as much as a small car, as well as tusks and a parrot-like beak, which it would have used to gather leaves and juicy plant stems. He's a chunky boy. So this is the beak, and then his two tusks. And muscular legs. The Placerias, from 220 to 210 million years ago, lived on the plains, was 2 to 3.5 meters, or 6.5 to 11 feet tall, and its diet consisted of plants. Mammal ancestor Dicynodonts such as Placerias are often described as mammal ancestors, although mammals actually evolved from a related group called the Cynodonts. They all belong to a branch of the vertebrate family tree called the synapsids, which separated from the reptiles in the Carboniferous period, almost 200 million years before the evolution of the earliest dinosaur. This was one of the earliest dinosaurs, a small, light, and agile animal, no bigger than a fox and possibly with a similar way of life. Most dinosaurs at this time resembled Eoraptor. It was only later that they evolved their spectacular variety of forms. Discovered in the Triassic rocks of Argentina in 1991, the fossil bones of this animal were soon identified as those of a meat eater. It clearly had sharp teeth and claws, since most later dinosaurs with these features were the theropods. Its finders decided that Eoraptor was a theropod too, an ancestor of giant hunters such as Tyrannosaurus rex. But Eoraptor lived at a time when all dinosaurs were very similar, and careful study of its teeth and bones suggests something else. Despite its size and shape, we now think that it was an ancestor of the colossal, long-necked, plant-eating sauropods. Eoraptor lived 228 to 216 million years ago. It lived in rocky deserts, was 1 meter or 3 feet long, and its diet consisted of lizards, small reptiles, and plants. It kind of looks like it's about the size of maybe a chicken. And here you have its sleek body with some little spikes along its back, and its little spiky teeth where it's caught a lizard in its mouth. And it kind of has that below the chin waddle in its little claws and hands. And then the back legs, strong and powerful. Easy mistake. Eoraptor lived at the same time and in the same place as a slightly bigger dinosaur, Herrerasaurus. Herrerasaurus was a theropod that looked very similar to Eoraptor, which explains why the scientists who first examined Eoraptor thought that it was a theropod too. At this stage in their evolution, all dinosaurs seem to have shared the same two-legged form. Exciting discovery. The first specimen of Eoraptor was named and described in 1993 by Paul Serrano and his colleagues. Serrano is an American paleontologist, fossil expert, who has led several expeditions in search of dinosaur fossils. At the time, Eoraptor was one of the oldest dinosaurs ever found, and they were found in the Ixigualasta National Park of Argentina. This area of barren rock has been given the name Valley of the Moon because it looks like a lunar landscape. Postosuchus. Although it looks like a dinosaur, this ferocious predator was a close relative of the crocodiles. It was one of the group of reptiles that dominated life in the Triassic, before the dinosaurs took over. The biggest, most powerful land predators of the late Triassic were reptiles called Rossuchians. Postosuchus was one of the biggest. It probably stood on its hind legs like a predatory dinosaur, rather than like a crocodile, and may have been almost as agile. It would have preyed on any dinosaurs it could catch, as well as dinosaurs such as Placerius. Postosuchus was alive 228 to 204 million years ago. It lived in woodlands. Its length was 3 to 4.5 meters, or 10 to 15 feet. The diet was other animals. This has short arms with big back feet, strong legs, long tail, and this actually looks like it has an armored back. Bumps all over, a large head, and big sharp teeth. The name Postosuchus means crocodile from Post because the fossils were first found at Post Quarry, Texas, in USA. At full-grown adult, a Postosuchus weighed 300 kilograms or 661 pounds. False alarm. Sunlight gleams through the trees, flooding the forest floor with light. The loud noise of a massive sauropod rearing up to take a mouthful of leaves causes alarm nearby. A small predator, Coelophysis, cannot see the source of the sound and is frightened. He sprints for cover, startling a tiny mammal, searching for insects among the moss. Though he is a meat-eating dinosaurs, Coelophysis is not going to chance being in the path of one of the bigger killers prowling these Triassic forests. Here's our smaller Coelophysis. And here's the large sauropod in the back. Here we can spot the mammal. Oh, here's the little mammal. Platyosaurus. One of the first dinosaurs to be discovered as a fossil, this plant eater was a prosauropod. Prosauropods were ancestors of the biggest land animals that have ever lived, the spectacular long-necked sauropods. Prosauropods were smaller and lighter than the sauropods. They walked on their hind legs, like the earliest dinosaurs, and used their hands to gather food. Platyosaurus was one of the biggest, and it seems to have been quite common in the region that is now northern and central Europe. Scientists have found more than 100 well-preserved skeletons since the first fossils were discovered in Germany in 1834. Platyosaurus was alive from 216 to 204 million years ago. It lived in forests and swamps. It was 10 meters or 33 feet tall and ate plants. And look at the human compared to one of these very large creatures. This is a very streamlined creature with stripes like a tiger Its teeth are flat to eat plants. It did have a grasping hands with a thumb. Apart from dinosaurs, the most intriguing animals of the Mesozoic era were the flying reptiles or pterosaurs. This airborne hunter was one of the earliest discovered so far. In many ways, the crow-sized Eunomorphodon was typical of early pterosaurs, with its long bony tail and long jaws studded with sharp teeth. Like all pterosaurs, it flew on wings that were sheets of stretched skin and thin muscle, each supported by the bones of the arm and a single extra-long wing finger, as well as stiffening fibers. The other 3 fingers formed a mobile, grasping hand at each bend of each wing. The animal's long wings indicate it was a capable flyer that probably hunted on the wing. Eunomorphodon lived 216 to 203 million years ago in coastal forests. It had a wingspan of 1 meter or 3 feet, and it lived on fish. So here it is compared to a human, 6 foot. The first fossil of Eunomorphodon was discovered in Italy in 1973. It kind of has a rat face to me, it looks like. Has some bigger teeth on the end to snatch things out of the air, and then smaller teeth, I'm assuming, to help move it down. Yep, for slicing up its prey. It's bat-like wings and toes. Dinosaurs. Some of the most famous dinosaurs, and certainly the biggest, were the colossal long-necked sauropods that supported their immense weight on 4 legs. Dinosaurs was one of the earliest, much smaller than the later giants, but with the same basic body plan. The first sauropodomorphs, such as Eoraptor, were small, agile animals. They gave rise to prosauropods such as Platyosaurus, which were specialized for eating plants, but still walked on 2 legs. Towards the end of the Triassic, these were replaced by true sauropods like Isanosaurus, which walked on all 4s, but could still rear up on their hind legs to feed. Isanosaurus lived 219 to 199 million years ago. They lived in woodlands. Their length was 6 meters, or 20 feet, and they ate leaves. The only known specimen of Isanosaurus was not fully grown, so we don't know how big it might have become. Isanosaurus was named after the Isen region of Northeast Thailand, where its fossils were found. Kind of reminds me of a salamander. Its little teeth are rounded, crushing up plants. Now we have spikes down its back, all the way down to its tail. Then we have those strong back legs and mobile Way Hunter was one of the earliest theropods, the group of mainly meat-eating dinosaurs that included all the most powerful land predators of the Mesozoic era. Like all theropods, Coelophysis ran on its hind legs, and the athletic form of its body suggests that it could run quite fast. Its arms were adapted for seizing prey, having grasping hands with 3 strong mobile fingers. However, this dinosaur probably relied more on its long, narrow, lightly built jaws, which were specialized for catching small animals such as lizards, early mammals, and large insects. The teeth at the tip of its upper jaw may have been specially adapted for plucking small burrowing animals from their holes. Long neck, body, those thigh muscles, yeah, Coelophysis. Smaller arms. Each hand had 3 long fingers and a very short 4th one. Coelophysis lived 216 to 200 million years ago. It lived on desert plains. It was 3 meters or 10 feet in length and ate other animals. 500 Coelophysis skeletons were found together at the Coast Ranch site in New Mexico, USA. Inside the stomach regions of some fossil Coelophysis skeletons contain the remains of their prey. These include the bones of small crocodile-type reptiles, proving that Coelophysis could tackle animals bigger than lizards. Scientists once thought that Coelophysis was a cannibal, as some skeletons seem to have the bones of younger ones in their stomachs. This has since been explained as a case of an adult crushing the younger animal in death, and their fossilized bones giving the impression that one ate the other. In 1998, a Coelophysis skull was carried into space aboard the Space Shuttle Endeavour. Interesting. Jurassic life. For most of the Triassic, the dinosaurs had been just a minor part of the wildlife, but the Jurassic period saw them evolve into a spectacular variety of forms, ranging from earth-shaking giants to agile feathered hunters the size of crows. They dominated a world that teemed with all kinds of animal life. Jurassic World, we have the map of Gondwana. So you would have had Laurasia and Europe and North America, South America, Africa, Antarctica. Environment. The Jurassic had ended with a mass extinction, and although it was not as severe as the previous one, this killed off roughly half the species living at the time. Its cause is still not known, but its effects on the environment do not seem to have lasted very long, and life was soon flourishing on land and in the oceans. The climate average global temperature was 16.5 degrees Celsius, or 61.7 degrees Fahrenheit. It was very warm during the early and middle Jurassic, but cooler in the late Jurassic. You had temperate rainforests, tropical islands. Plants had ferns, conifers, cycad, and ginkgos. You had marine invertebrates, land invertebrates, such as the dragonfly, Labellium, lush Jurassic forests. You had giant dinosaurs like the Parapasaurus and marine reptiles. Megasostrodon. No bigger than a mouse, this creature was one of the earliest mammals. It lived right at the beginning of the Jurassic, when the dinosaurs were just beginning to dominate life on land. Megasostrodon was such an early mammal that some experts prefer to see it as a link between the true mammals and their cynodont ancestors. However, it had most of the features of true mammals, including fur and a set of teeth that were of different shapes and suitable for different jobs: cutting, piercing, slicing, and chewing. It would have preyed on worms, insects, spiders, and similar small animals, very like a modern shrew. A Megasostrodon lived 199 to 196 million years ago. It lived in woodlands. The length was 10 centimeters or 4 inches high. So here's a hand. So it was just a tiny little thing. And it consisted of eating small animals. Here's a worm in its mouth. It had large eyes. Look at these little ears. Sensitive ears. The structure of its brain showed that Megasostrodon had acute hearing. The ear had 2 little fangs that were larger, and then sharp teeth. Its jaws contained 4 types of teeth: nipping incisors at the front, pointed canines, and larger premolars and molars for chewing its food. Egg-laying mammal. Although a mammal, Megasostrodon would have laid leathery shelled eggs. A few modern mammals do this, including the Australian duck-billed platypus. When the eggs hatch, the tiny toothless babies would have fed on milk provided by their mother. It had 5 toes on its feet and a scaly tail like a modern rat. Heterodontosaurus. Equipped with a set of teeth that looked more like those of a mammal than a dinosaur, this turkey-sized animal is one of the most puzzling dinosaurs of all. Scientists still do not know what it ate or quite where to place it in the story of dinosaur evolution. A typical dinosaur has teeth that are all very similar, but Heterodontosaurus had 3 different types of teeth, like a mammal. It had short front teeth in its top jaw, 2 pairs of long, sharp canines, and many chisel-edged cheek teeth. It also had a beak. It seems equipped to eat anything, from small animals to tough vegetation, and this is probably how it lived, picking and choosing for the best food value, like a mammal wild pig. But it is also possible that the long canine teeth were weapons used by rivals to fight for territory. Heterodontosaurus lived from 200 to 190 million years ago. In scrublands, it was 1 meter or 3 feet in length, and ate plants, tubers, and insects. So here's a 6-foot person with the little Heterodontosaurus. They had large eyes, and its skin was thought to be covered in bristles, similar to a boar. A typical dinosaur has teeth that are all very similar, but Heterodontosaurus had 3 different types of teeth. Like a mammal, it had short front teeth in its top jaw, 2 pairs of long, sharp canines, chisel-edged cheek teeth. It also had a beak. It seems equipped to eat anything, from small animals to tough vegetation, and this is probably how it lived, picking and choosing for the best food value like a mammal wild pig. But it's also possible that the long canine teeth were weapons used by rivals to fight for territory. Heterodontosaurus lived from 200 to 190 million years ago. It lived in scrublands. Its length was 1 meter or 3 feet, and its diet consisted of plants, tubers, and insects. So here it is compared to a person, rather small. It had large eyes and long canine teeth, and it was covered in bristles, similar to what a boar or a wild pig. Fine fossil. In 1976, this almost complete skeleton of Heterodontosaurus was found in South Africa. It's one of the finest dinosaur fossils ever found, with all the bones in place, almost as they would have been when the creature was alive. Such fully articulated fossil skeletons are very unusual and give scientists a valuable insight into the anatomy of this animal and its relatives. It's possible that this dinosaur used its long teeth to crack into ancient termite nests. Heterodontosaurus means different-toothed lizard. It had grasping hands with 5 fingers and strongly curved claws. Skeletosaurus. The chunky, 4-footed Skeletosaurus was a member of a group of dinosaurs called the Thyreophorans, beaked plant eaters that developed tough, bony defenses against hungry, sharp-toothed predators. In the early Jurassic, the main enemies of plant-eating dinosaurs were lightly built hunters with sharp-edged teeth, like knife blades. Such teeth were ideal for slicing through soft flesh, but likely to snap if they hit hard bone. This encouraged the evolution of a group of dinosaurs with bony plates called scutes embedded in their skin. Skeletosaurus was among the earliest of these armored dinosaurs. Looks like a beak. Had good vision. Sturdy limbs. Looks very bird-like in its mouth, doesn't it? And it has armored skin, rows of bony knobs sheathed in horny keratin formed a tooth-breaking armor on its back. Many rows all the way around, even has it on the underside of its tail and down along its joints. Skeletosaurus lived 196 to 183 million years ago in forests, and its length was 4 meters or 13 feet. It ate low-growing plants. Here it is compared to a 6-foot human. Cryolophosaurus. Famous for its strangely formed bony crest, this was one of the earliest big theropods, a powerful hunter that could have preyed on other large dinosaurs. Found in the rocks of Antarctica, the fossils of this flamboyantly crested dinosaur are a relic of a time when the frozen continent had a much warmer climate. With dense forests rich in animal life, Cryolophosaurus was a meat eater at the top of the local food chain, with no enemies except others of its kind. Its crest was a display feature that helped rivals settle disputes by showing off to each other rather than fighting, something that could be very dangerous for animals with such long, sharp teeth. Oh yes, look at that beautiful crest. It says out a mobile neck, serrated teeth. It's really quite attractive, isn't it? Curly crest. The strange transverse bony crest curled forward at the top like breaking waves. It was likely to have been vividly colored, like the dramatic feathery crest of this Amazonian royal flycatcher. Very nice. Cryolophosaurus lived 190 to 183 million years ago in forests and plains. Its length was 6 meters, or 20 feet, and it ate other animals. And yeah, it was big enough to probably scare a human. It reminds me of Blue, if Blue had had a crest. Crested relative. In many ways, Cryolophosaurus is very like another crested theropod called Dilophosaurus, which had a similar slim build and 4-fingered hands. They may have been close relatives, but detailed studies of Cryolophosaurus suggest that it evolved more recently. Cryolophosaurus was found in the Trans-Antarctic Mountains in one of the few parts of Antarctica that is not covered by thick ice. But in the early Jurassic, the continent was near the equator and had a mild climate, with lush forests like these in western China. It's been drifting south and cooling down ever since, and it is now the coldest place on Earth. Monolophosaurus. This powerful hunter was similar to many other theropod dinosaurs, except for one feature, the big knobbly crest capping its snout. The crest's bony core was hollow, so it might have acted as a sound box that made the dinosaur's calls extra loud. Although it lived in the Middle Jurassic, Monolophosaurus was an early type of theropod, belonging to a group that evolved after Coelophysis and its Triassic relatives, but before big Jurassic hunters such as Allosaurus. Only one fossil specimen has been found, in China in 1984, and it has several odd features that make its exact place in the evolution of dinosaurs difficult to pin down. But it must have been an impressive animal, and would have been one of the most feared predators of its time. His knife-edged teeth is quite a bony structured nose. Monolophosaurus was living 167 to 161 million years ago. Lived in forests. Its length was 6 meters or 20 feet, and it ate other animals. And it was definitely bigger than a 6-foot person, wasn't it? So we have this greenish looking body. It has these little tiny ribs on its feet. It has long curved fingers with sharp claws on the end. The crest was part of the skull, which was taller than usual because of large air pockets in the bones of the snout. The cavities kept its weight down and may have added resonance to the animal's calls, in the same way that the hollow body of a guitar makes its strings sound louder. A young Monolophosaurus in 2006 Another Jurassic crested theropod was found in China, named Guanlong. It was much smaller than the Monolophosaurus, and the crest was a different shape. Most scientists think it was an ancestor of Tyrannosaurus, but some suggest that it was a young Monolophosaurus, and that its crest would have changed shape as it grew up, common among dinosaurs. However, one fossil specimen of Guanlong has since been found that shows features that are typically adult, so it seems that it really was a quite different animal. Leopleurodon. Some of the most fearsome predators that have ever existed lived not on land, but in the oceans. They were the plesiosaurs, true sea monsters with massive, immensely strong jaws. Plesiosaurs such as Leopleurodon were big-jawed relatives of the long-necked plesiosaurs, such as Albertonectes. They swam in the same way, driving themselves through the water with foreflippers, but plesiosaurs were specialized for hunting big animals, including their plesiosaur relatives. Leopleurodon was probably an ambush killer that used its speed to surge out of the depths, seize its prey in its teeth, and if necessary, rip it to pieces. The Leopleurodon lived from 165 to 161 million years ago in the oceans. It was 7 meters or 23 feet long. It ate fish, squid, and marine reptiles. That's quite a large creature. It would definitely keep me out of the seas. So it had color camouflage, large nostrils, large pointed teeth to grab its prey. 1.5 meters or 5 feet is the length of the largest Leopleurodon skull found so far. Most of that length is jaw, studded with huge, very deep-rooted, spike-shaped teeth. Pterodactylus. Discovered as long ago as 1780, this was the first pterosaur known to science, but it took another 20 years for scientists to realize that its extra long finger bones supported wings and that it could fly. During the late Jurassic, the long-tailed pterosaurs such as Rhamphorhynchus started to give way to new types of pterosaurs, with very short tails, longer necks, and long beaks with small teeth, or even no teeth at all. They are often called pterodactyloids after Pterodactylus, the first to be identified. With its long, powerful wings, Pterodactylus was well equipped for flight, but its strong legs and large feet indicate that it probably foraged for food on the ground or in shallow water. The name pterodactyl in Greek for wing finger, after the elongated fourth finger that supported each wing. It lived 155 to 145 million years ago. It lived on tidal shores. Its wingspan was 1 meter or 3 feet in length, and it ate small marine animals. Webbed feet. The finest fossils show that the long toes of Pterodactylus were webbed, like those of a seabird. They would have let Pterodactylus walk on soft mud without sinking, and may also have allowed it to swim like a duck. Wings, stripes, a head crest, and pointy teeth. Wing claws. supporting the front of its body on its hands, with its outer wings folded up neatly out of the way. There are 27 good fossil specimens of Pterodactylus known to science. Alright, we'll do one more today. Stegosaurus. Famous for the rows of big, broad, bony plates on its back, this was one of the biggest of the stegosaurs. Its defensive weapons made it a dangerous prey for hunters. Like its smaller relative Kentrosaurus, this well-known dinosaur was equipped with a spectacular array of dorsal plates and spines. But while the spines must have been useful for defense, the enormous plates were more likely to have been for show, enhancing the animal's appearance as it competed with Stegosaurus rivals for status and territory. It used its sharp beak to gather ferns and other low-growing plants, but may have been able to rear up on its hind legs to feed from trees or check for danger. So it had long spikes on its tail, and those plates that we come to know as stegosaurs. Had a very small head and beak-like throat guard, little legs that were strong, not so smart. Poor Stegosaurus. Stegosaurus was the size of an elephant, but its brain was no bigger than a dog's. It was probably not very intelligent, but its simple plant-eating lifestyle meant that it did not need to make many difficult decisions. It takes all kinds. Stegosaurus lived 155 to 151 million years ago. It lived in forests. It was 9 meters or 30 feet in length, and it ate leaves and ferns. Here it is compared to a 6-foot human. 80 is the number of Stegosaurus fossils found in the American Midwest so far. The number of bony plates are 17 on its back. I think that's probably good for today. I hope you enjoyed our journey into Dinosaur Land. And we'll have to venture into some of the dinosaur books we've already covered again, so that we can see more. Leave me a comment about your favorite dinosaurs, or what you'd like to see